Welcome, Pat, to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Nice to be on today. Thank you.
Yes, I'm excited to talk with you. I have personally watched your movie and really enjoyed it, so I know we want to get into that. But before we talk about that, I first just want to learn a little bit about you. And I know we're going to be talking about your caregiving experience with your wife, Carmen. We're going to hit that too, but we always kick off the show with a little bit of words of inspiration or affirmation from the Happy Healthy Caregiver jar. So wanted to get your thoughts on today's quote. So it says, when you think of yesterday, when you can think of yesterday without regret and tomorrow without fear, you are near contentment.
Wow. I don't know. I am so content now by being able to reach out to the world through people like you in podcasts and speaking engagements, because that's the message of that on the early onset Alzheimer's for the caregiver that I'm trying to give. So I am very content as these podcasts have taken place. You're about the 7th or 8th one now.
Nice.
That's reaching out, and that's what makes me happy.
Yeah, I think, you know, your life has great purpose, and you have through your personal stories and struggles, you have something to share. I mean, that's what I did when I started Happy Healthy Caregiver. I wanted people to fast track family caregivers to the resources and support that could help them, because 6 years ago when I was caring for my parents, I didn't think that there wasn't a lot available, or at least there wasn't anything available that I could easily find. And so fast tracking and connecting people such as yourself with family caregivers is what I love to do. So I think that we can take our situation that has a lot of lemons in it potentially and make some lemonade is something that I admire about you.
That's the best. That's the best.
Yes. Well, tell us about Carmen and how you all met, and a little bit about your life, where you live. And then we'll touch into the caregiving experience after we kind of set the stage.
Okay, good. I was in an ocean carrier. I was a salesman. I used to, sell space on vessels, and I was what you call Uptown Man. And Uptown Man had the big accounts in Manhattan. So I had Macy's and JCPenney and United States Steel, and I had the well-known accounts. When you get those as an account executive, it's a big gold star.
Yes.
And my boss called me one morning and he said, I want you to go over to this place on called Dogwell Corporation on 120 Wall Street. I said, Wall Street? I don't do Wall Street. I'm Uptown guy, He said, listen, I have a telex from Tokyo. And he said, that company is controlling 800 containers of Christmas tree lights that's going from Hong Kong to the Caribbean. So they want an answer in Tokyo because they want to make sure they have the ships are available and put up, so they might be selected, but you got to call on the person that controls it. So I was really upset about it, and it was a hot day, and I walked down to Wall Street, and I didn't want any part of this. And I came up to the company, and I said, I'd like to speak to the traffic manager, who I thought really was a male, because that's what they didn't have a name, but that was just kind of the world back then.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman walked down in a sweatshirt and jeans, and, which is now everybody does, back then it wasn't.
It was not the norm. Yeah.
And I said, listen, she said, well, my name is Carmen. And I said, listen, I'm sorry. I want to speak to the traffic manager, not the secretary.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So right away, the trap door opened up, and there you go. So she said, well, aren't you lucky, Mr. Moffett, because I am the traffic manager.
I love it.
Backpedaling all over the place to get this, because it was a big piece of business I needed that night, and to give Tokyo an answer. And we had lunch the day after that. I went to lunch to apologize. And once we went to lunch, we're almost inseparable from then on.
Wow. Yes, it touches on that a bit in the beginning of the movie, but which is based on your life, of course. But so then fast forward a little bit and tell us a little bit about how, you got married, you had 5 kids, I think.
Yeah, well, Carmen had 3 girls from
okay.
from a previous marriage, and we had 2 boys. So when we joined up, it was an immediate family for me. And, I came back from Vietnam and I didn't have my feet on the ground. I went through a bad marriage within a year. It's just something I caused, and, just should have never got involved. I was just rushing through my life and trying to get settled, and it was the wrong thing to do. And then when I met Carmen, everybody got worried because they said, hey, Pat, you can't even raise yourself. Now you're going to be with a woman that has 3 children, that responsibility. And I said, listen, Carmen told me the children love me the way she loves me, and that's good enough for me. And that's how it really got going. And then we had the 2 boys.
I love that. My family, I'm one of 6 kids, and my mom I'm number 5 out of 6. And my mom was married before she married my dad, and she had 4 kids under 10 years old, and her first husband died of leukemia. And my dad was a bachelor in his 30s, never been married. People told him the similar thing. He was an uptown guy, but our town was not quite as big as Manhattan, but a small town in Pennsylvania. But and then they had me and my sister for the total of 6. So that's quite a lot to take on. Yeah, you said, instant family. Yeah, responsibilities.
And it did work, and that's the way, exactly what Carmen said would happen. And then, but unfortunately, around 19, well, I guess it was 83, we separated, and we've had a lot of issues between each other, so we separated and went back together 4 years later, and worked out what we had to work out, which we were over that, and then we went into the 90s and got the kids raised, and we were just kind of rubbing our hands together, saying, okay, we're going to invest now. What are we going to do? Where she was 53 and I was 49. Got to start working. We got to start saving. What are we going to do with 401ks and stuff like that? And we had dinner in a great little Italian restaurant in Great Neck, Long Island. And right after that, she started to act strange. Like she was forgetting some stuff, but she seemed very irritated and biting at me on just everything we could do. And I said, couples are going to argue. Certainly, we already went through a separation. And, but what is this about? So it was on every day, it was more trouble. And I said, listen, why don't we go to Puerto Rico? She was Puerto Rican, Carmen. Why don't we go to Puerto Rico? We'll have a nice romantic weekend. Maybe we're both working too hard. A little break here. Let's get away from the kids and everything else, and we'll be good. And we went down to Puerto Rico, and she still seemed irritated even on the plane going down. And I tried to make fun of different things and try to keep the mood going. And then that dinner, we got in Puerto Rico, and we went out to dinner that night. And it was a beautiful restaurant with a 2nd floor veranda. And I was looking over the side at some of the cars. I was looking at it this way, and I looked down, and I said, wow, 52 Chevy, 55 Ford, these amazing cars here. And I turned my head around, and she hit me in the face with a plate of steak and lobster and ran out of the restaurant.
She hit you in the face with what?
Steak and lobster, the whole plate.
Wow. She didn't someone's not doing well then, because who's going to throw away their steak and their lobster? Nobody.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we weren't arguing, we weren't doing anything. I was just admiring the cars, and I turned my head away and turned back, and she ran out of the restaurant. I fell out of the table. The people had to pick me up off the floor. And I tried to pay the bill. The guy went, it's okay. Don't worry. Just go get your wife. And, so I'm running down the main drag of Puerto Rico, Ashford Avenue. Now here's a 5-foot Puerto Rican woman being chased by a 6'3" Irish guy. And this is not a movie here. So,
yes, this looks like trouble.
Yeah. And the police caught up to me. And because she was so angry when I finally got there, and they said, are you all right, sir? And I said, yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And I was able to get it into a taxi. And we got back to the hotel. She lay down in the bed and went right out to sleep. This is about 7 o'clock at night. Never did anything like that. Just boom, she was out. So I went out on a terrace, and I had 3 of the fastest beers, I think, in my life. I didn't know what this was. And she came out about 30 minutes later, and she says, honey, when are you going to feed me? I am starved. Let's go eat. And I said, wait a minute. I said, I tried that, and you threw your food at me. She said, that's ridiculous. She said,
do you remember any of it?
Yeah. She said, you make fun of me too much. That's not right that you should say that. And by the way, what happened to your shirt? There's all kinds of stuff on it. So that's where you hit me with the food. She says, there you go again. I don't know what you're talking about. There was no recollection of this big traumatic event. Within 30 minutes, it was gone. Now,
does it normally happen like that? I know you're going to talk to us about early onset Alzheimer's, which is a mouthful to say. And she was classified as having that, right? Because of her, how old was she at this point?
53.
53. Yeah.
And-
I'm hitting my big 50 this year. That's not in my plan the next few years. So,
But
is it normal? I mean, is that a normal?
No, well, that's what a lot of, when you first hear Alzheimer's, the first thing you think is forgetfulness. And of course that goes because the brain cells are being eaten by, this protein. But I got back on the next plane right away in the morning, got back to New York, and I didn't know what to do. I said, you need to see a doctor. You're forgetting things and you're angry with me every day. And she wouldn't do it. And I'm fine. It's something wrong with you. I don't know what you're talking about. And I just made up one day and I said, I have to put a net over her, throw her in the trunk and take her to a doctor because, if she doesn't want to go, because this is bad. At the school, the local school. And I was very surprised, even to this day, why the school never called me and told me, if I'm having issues at home, you have to be having something going on there. And so what happened was then.
What was her role at the school? I might have missed that part.
She's actually budget administrator.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And when she was, and would do ordering, I mean, she had to order Elmer's glue for the kids. It was an elementary school. She had to order Elmer's glue, and she ordered 20 cases of airplane glue. And they said, Carmen, this is your order. This is what you ordered. That's why it's being delivered. It's not a mistake. This is what you ordered. You made the mistake. So they told her, listen, the budget is all messed up and you're just not yourself. We made an appointment with you at the local hospital, Northwell Health, North Shore Hospital, and we want you to get examined. Let's see what they think. And this way, if it's something that has to be taken care of, you'll have disability from the state of New York, in the union. But if you don't go, we have to fire you for cause. You're just not doing your job anymore. So fortunately, she saw that shock of that. She loved her job so much. And she went to get it and she was diagnosed that same day, the early onset Alzheimer's.
Perhaps, sometimes I hear from some of my caregiving clients that they have to have these courageous conversations with loved ones. And sometimes I think it could be easier pushing that envelope from an employer or a doctor or getting you out of it. It might not have gone the same way had you pushed for it.
Well, she wanted to, that day when she came home, she said, will you sit down? I need to talk to you. And I did. And she says, I have a touch of Alzheimer's. Well, that's like being a little bit pregnant.
Yeah, exactly.
But she was trying to lessen that blow that you were just kind of talking about, but she had herself. And that's the way life started in our Alzheimer's world. And, she was a very violent case, which is one of the things that one of my first signs was violence, not forgetfulness. Didn't notice that, but what is this thing? And you see it many, many times in early onset cases. There's always a period of violence. Now, don't forget, Elizabeth, that the patient for early onset, they're under 65. Okay, and Carmen was 53, and I have cases on Long Island that are 48, 51, and so on. They're very healthy other than their mind.
Yeah.
Strong.
And can live a long time.
Yes. And they're very strong. And that's what one of the problems is, because the caregiver is getting beat up here and they don't know what to do about it. And they're afraid to tell anybody because it's usually spousal, and it's a tough time. So that's my awareness portion.
Yeah. So emotionally beat up, of course, because of burnout and all that, but then physically beat up. And that, like, to your point, that's uncomfortable. You'd mentioned something before we started about a case that happened locally in Allentown. Was that related?
Allentown. Yes. It was March 3rd. We had a big snowstorm up in the Northeast. We got about 19 inches, I think, on Long Island. And Allentown, Pennsylvania, in the thick of Pennsylvania, got 27 inches of snow.
Oh, wow.
So when the snow cleared up, I was going through Yahoo News, and I see, Allentown woman with Alzheimer's dies, and I'm going, wow, what's this about? And I get into all these right away. So this case turns out where a woman, 67 years old, with early onset, probably had it a few years, I don't know all the details yet, got out of the house somewhere in the middle of the night in the snowstorm, And, Alzheimer's patient doesn't know how to dress for things. They don't make
Yeah.
that connection. She could have been out there in her pajamas, and went 8 blocks from her house, got completely disoriented as to where she lived, fell into the snow, and died of hypothermia.
That's tragic.
So, yeah, the call was made to the Allentown police at 4:30 in the morning, and they found her at 9:30 already dead. Other than that, there was nothing wrong with this woman. So I've been trying to I've made 3 calls to the Allentown police because I'm trying to get myself into that family to be able to talk to them. And they haven't returned my calls yet, but I know these people are blaming each other. Who left Patricia alone? And So, the caregiver could have been sound asleep thinking maybe his wife went to the bathroom.
What do you tell people, Pat, in that situation? Like if you could meet the people in Allentown or you meet people like them, like what are the words that you say that comfort them? Because maybe there's someone listening that's in the similar situation and beating themselves up that they weren't there.
Yeah. Having the one caregiver take on the entire load is very difficult. So you either have to share that with the family and give that caregiver a break. And a lot of times they'll reject it, saying, I'm doing fine, but you need to get help early.
Fine isn't a feeling. Fine is not a feeling. Yes.
Yeah. And it's just, I'm trying to get in touch with them because I can not relieve, but ease their pain a little bit. The same situation was with Carmen that I put in the book, and we put a version in the movie. You might have seen when she was out walking the dog.
Yes.
Well, in New York on Long Island, in February, and it was about 20 degrees out. And I had come home from work and she wasn't there, and neither was the dog. So I just thought, well, I guess she's walking the dog. And hours later, she came back. I thought she went to somebody's house locally. Meanwhile, she was walking all that time because she couldn't find the house. All right. And she came in, her eyebrows were just frozen, her hands. And she said, I couldn't find the house. I couldn't find the house. And she was crying hysterical. And I said, well, you're here. You found it.
The dog found it.
The dog found it.
The dog saved her. Yeah. I mean, and there are things now that you can get for people with Alzheimer's who wander, right? There are some products that you can get that help them track and know where they are.
Yep, there are things like that, bracelets, but even small things like this little alarm that you can put under your door, your front door, and maybe your back door. And as soon as the door opens, this thing starts to wow and bark and everything else, and that's the thing to draw your attention. But when you're handling these cases and you're the core caregiver, you're not thinking of any of that thing. I can handle this. I'm going to be fine. She gets up and goes. I don't know she's leaving.
You can't make this blank up.
That's
right. Is what we say in my family. It's like you can't even predict the things that are going to happen. I have an aunt right now that both my parents are deceased, and I've got a brother that's developmentally disabled and an aunt that was recently with frontal temporal dementia. But they're all of them are a little bit different, but she's had a lot of behavioral changes. And not herself. And frankly, she tried to escape. Like, she tried to escape the memory care unit. Like they don't know what they don't know, but they're intelligent people who know how to figure stuff out. And, luckily it didn't happen that way. And this is like a code. She found the code and putting it in. But to your point, like it's caregiving is a team sport. Like you need a whole care team on, and you got to have not only a plan A, but a B and a C and a D,
a ton. Yeah. You go back with that.
A lot of backups. Yeah. A lot of backups to the whole way. And then you were juggling work and all of this at the same time. I mean, and you were an uptown guy. So that, that couldn't have been easy.
Well, those days had gone by. I was vice president of the corporation. And, but in any case, the difficulties that we had with the violence continued. So I got a caregiver full-time because we didn't want her wandering around. We took the car away, got rid of that, got that thing out of the way so she wasn't driving anymore. And here's where I made a mistake. They said this, I went to a caregiver organization that has the people that employs them. And they gave me a person that understood Alzheimer's really well. And she's They highly recommended her. And I said, okay, great. And she came in the house and she had a bunch of games that she said, I want to show you, Mr. Moffett, what I do. It helps keeps them busy and it helps their mind working. And I said, okay, really, this is very cool. Carmen's not going to be just sitting around looking at a TV. They're going to be active as much as they can. But she was very heavy and not in really good physical condition. And that's where I made my mistake. So she got out of the house when the woman went to the bathroom.
The woman wasn't fast enough, wasn't nimble enough to keep up with her.
Exactly. She was blocks away. And I happened to be driving down that road. And there was Carmen talking to some construction workers that were digging a hole in the ground. And I says, oh my God, what's she doing out here by herself? And I got out of the car and I said, I'm sorry, this is my wife. And they said, thank God she seems like such a nice lady. We're going to call the police because she seems lost. And this was on a sunny day, 5-6 blocks away from the house, and she couldn't find it then either. And then just like that, around the corner comes the caregiver, huffing and puffing, going, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I didn't think she was that fast,
Aw.
You get a caregiver that has good physical, structure too, and it takes care of herself. For that reason, you have to be ready for this.
You got to be ready for anything. And I think it's become more, more talked about subject where people like construction workers and policemen and firemen are more trained about the stuff that they can see. I mean, I'm sure that we can do better, that if you encounter a situation like this might be, what's happening here. So.
Well, as so I got another caregiver in, and then I reached the point that I couldn't get a housekeeper to work for me. I couldn't get a caregiver to work for me either because she was so violent. She was beating them up. So on Long Island, we have a place in the Long Island Jewish Hospital. It's called the Parker Center, and it's a Alzheimer's daycare facility. So I went and I met the people in that, and I said, oh, this is really nice, and beautifully organized and everything. And so I could go to work. I drop her in the morning, just dropping a child to school, and you pick them up after work, sort of thing. And I said, well, this is good. It was like an enormous amount of money per week. I went through all our money. It was like $1,400 a week or something like that. But they were well taken care of. So what happens, I get a call in my office and they said, Mr. Moffett, you better come down to the Alzheimer's Center today. We need to see you. I said, everything okay? He says, we've had an incident and we have to report it by state law, but you have to come. So I went down there, and as it turned out, Carmen punched out a 90-year-old man in the center, bruised him up pretty good. And they said, they told me that, they said, you have to understand that when we have an incident like this, the family of the person that creates the fighting and damage is responsible, along with the facility, for legal action. And I said, oh, gee, don't tell me that.
Now you're opening, not only are you paying a lot, but you're opening yourselves up to legal issues. And she's a loose cannon. I mean, and not to any fault of her own, but because of the disease. And ultimately she did end up having to stay somewhere, a long-term facility, right?
Well, she did, they said, we can't take her anymore. We can't bring her here. And so then I talked to the doctors and they said, the only point where we are now, your wife's case is so violent, is that we have to bring her in for testing of antipsychotic drugs. That's the only, so 28 of them, and there might be a mixture of them that'll work, but we need to have her in the hospital here for 3 weeks, and she'll be monitored 24/7. And then we'll see what we come up with. And, hopefully you'll take a calmer wife home, and then you can start again. Well, 3 weeks went by, and I met with the doctors, and they said, Mr. Moffett, this case is so bad with your wife that the antipsychotic drugs we don't even know how long these are going to work. And if you take your wife home and she convulses or something goes wrong, you're going to call 911, and they won't have any idea what to do. So we're recommending 100% you put her for 24/7 care right from this building, home at all. And of course, that was a shock, and that just stunned me into how bad we were in this.
It's a long grieving process, right, Pat? Like it
is, because you're grieving while someone's still alive and there, And
what was helping you during this time? Like with all of these, where were, and I know for men in my family, anyway, I can't speak to everybody, but showing your emotion is hard, I think, as a male, and reaching out for support nobody's really good at it, but I think particularly it would be hard. You're used to managing a bunch of different things. Like, where did you find help and support?
Well, I went into therapy. I was just, I had a pair of shorts, sneakers, and a t-shirt on. I walked into my doctor's office and I said, I don't know where to go. I'm lost. I said, I need you. Can you help me? And he put me right with a psychiatrist right away. And I was on the treatment for years. And that's what really helped me through some medication.
Yes.
And then someone like that be able to talk to. And then the shocking thing after that, okay, Carmen was in 24/7 care. Her brother and her two sisters all get early onset as well. That's 4 out of 4 siblings with me. That's a very rare mutation of this disease. They were also violent and they also passed away in their 60s, as did Carmen. So that is a genetic connection right there.
Yes. I mean, are there things that we can do? I've heard things, right? Like, you can't completely if it is in your gene pool, but like sleep, and diet.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. We mean that as far as how you broke up a little bit there. Your microphone is breaking up.
Oh, I said how to prevent early Alzheimer's. Like, what are some things that we can do?
Well, what they have out there now is, there are things to talk about. When you have early onset, there's nothing, they keep the mind active, of course. The medications that they have are out there which are intended to slow it down. But in early onset, the disease accelerates much faster than it does in the early. So in some cases it works, sometimes it doesn't. So there's a lot of different things out there on, but the people I spoke to, they haven't seen anything that's going to prevent it.
Some of you have to. Some people just want to sell their stuff, right? You have to be careful.
Yeah.
But I mean, regardless, though, a healthy lifestyle and a happy lifestyle is always a good thing to prevent lots of different things. It's not going to hurt you to do any of that.
Right. We should be doing for everything.
Exactly. So the book became before the movie. What initiated you to write the book? And I love that you picked it that you wrote it as a romance. I think is.
Well, when Carmen was diagnosed at 53 years old, having at 49 years old, I had no idea about this disease. I thought it was a world record, and I went, oh, this is, I have to do something. I have to get involved with this, but I got to take a big step. And then when Carmen's sisters got it, it was just, oh my God, I have to write this book. I have to tell Carmen's story. And that was the inspiration. That's all I needed right there to get me going. But the movie, I was just on a plane to LA.
Yeah.
And I was sitting down next to a person that knew some people in Hollywood. He was an author as well. We exchanged books. And he called me 3 days later. He said, this is amazing. He said, this has to be a film. He said, I want you to introduce you to a couple of people and maybe we can get started. And that's how we did it.
Wow. So you know what the lesson is there. Don't sit down in an airplane and put your earphones in. You just never know who you're sitting next to, right?
Exactly. Exactly what that happened.
My dad had a phrase that said, life is a contact sport. He used to tell us that all the time. Like, it's all about, networking and who you know. So I love that story. My next question was like, how did it get from the book to the movie? And what would you tell authors? Because there's an organization, and maybe you're a part of it, Pat. I'm not sure, but All's Authors. Have you heard of All's Authors?
No, I haven't heard that. No.
Okay, good. I'm glad I can tell you something. Yeah, alzauthors.com. It's either .com or .org. Not sure. But they are over 200 authors that have all written about Alzheimer's and dementia coming together. Because, there's a loud message when they unite in numbers. And so they're a partner of the Happy Healthy Caregiver. And I've had a few of the authors on the show. I met them originally at a caregiving conference. And I've only read one other Alzheimer's love story romance. And that was a book called Blue Hydrangeas that I'll link to in the show notes. I always put notes together. So I'll link to your movie and your book. And your book and your movie, are they the same name? Ice Cream in the Cupboard?
Yeah, they're the same name. Ice Cream in the Cupboard. Yeah. Everybody said
I love the name.
Yeah. How did he get that name? And when Carmen was, home yet and hadn't been in for any treatment, we went food shopping and came back, and she put the food away as she always did. And I went out to the dry cleaners. I came back a little while later, and I was going in the kitchen, and I saw this white liquid coming down out of the pantry, which she called a cupboard, And I said, "What's this?" And I opened up the cabinet, and I'm pushing the canned goods away and trying to find out the source. And sure enough, I get up to the top, and there's a deflated box of Breyer's vanilla ice cream. She put it in there, and I said, "Hon, you must have put the food away at lightning speed because you put the ice cream in the cupboard." And she went crazy. She said, "I didn't do that. You don't blame those kids upstairs for anything." She was just wild. And
I know.
A couple of days later, and that was it. So I named it. It was a pivotal point. So I named it Ice Cream in the Cupboard.
Yeah, there are some scenes that stick out in the movie. And you mentioned the dog walking one, the ice cream in the cupboard, and then of course, the some of the violence is not over the top violence, but it gets the point across that you were receiving a lot of physical brunt of things, and I think people who are in that situation will be able to relate. But there was also a moment, one of my favorite moments was when you met the golfers on the golf course, and
Yes.
You couldn't take out your aggression on your wife's situation, and you were so mad and kicking the cans and hitting them with a golf club. Was did that really happen?
The golf scene happened, but not that way. Dana went a little crazy with the golf club. We said once or twice that he was just hitting it all over the place, and it was good. It happened in the film.
Yeah.
But no, I lost her one morning. I got up. We're upstate New York, and I love there's such fresh air up there in the fall. And I woke up and she's gone. She's not next to me. I said, "Oh my God!" And so I went down, and the dog was gone too. So I walk outside, no Carmen anywhere. I'm running up and down the streets. I said, "I don't know how long she's been out." Similar to the Allentown, Pennsylvania case. How long has she been out? For an hour, 4 hours, And I looked over, and the golf course was across the street, and way in the distance, I could see like a person and a dog. Which I said, "Wonder if that's Carmen." So I ran to, and it's pouring down rain. And as I get Carmen, I said, "Okay, good. I got you." I was trying to relax, and they started yelling at me. The golfers were already drunk, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. It was like, golfers like to party, and they were in this little thing, and they were in the rain. And, they said, "Hey, buddy, why don't you, keep your old lady off the golf course, and, you ought to keep her home and keep an eye out." I said, "You know what? In the book, I put in, when you go home tonight and you guys have wives," I said, "give them an extra hug and tell them you love them, because if I say that, she doesn't understand what it means anymore. She has Alzheimer's disease."
Yeah.
And they went, "Hey, listen, man, we're really sorry. We didn't, it's okay. No offense taken. But if you want to fight me, I'm over in California."
Yeah.
So that's how that was.
Yeah. People you just don't know, right? What someone else is going through. What was it like to watch your life on the screen?
It was so crazy. And that was, I think, the most difficult part for me was transitioning the book into the film. So I had to work with the director, and then I was executive producer and the writer and the owner and all that. But I had to give up scenes. Otherwise, we would have had a 7-hour movie and the whole place would be asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to give up certain things that were in the book. That's why they always say the book is better than the film. I had to give things up and then push this in. And then, we would have a meeting on each one. And then I would change scenes myself. And then I wrote the scene in the hospital bed with Tobin Bell. When he said that from the baseball game, when he talks about the Mets, I wrote that scene. And,
nice.
But it was to get 5 or 6 more things in there, not violent, but I wanted to have a little fun. I wanted the audience to fall in love with Carmen a little bit more, and there's something together with the kids. And then then you transition back into the Alzheimer's, and you kind of go. So we got in what we could, and there were many more violent situations, but I didn't want to make it a film of violence or a book of violence. So you take those two, stay with it. So.
What are you hoping people take away from both your book and your movie?
I just want them to learn that we still in this country don't seem to, for the most part, don't know that this early onset is out there. I still talk to people every week, and somebody will say, "Your wife got Alzheimer's at 53." Nobody gets that. And I went, well, that's because you don't know. You don't know what goes on out there. On Long Island, Elizabeth, we just lost 3 years ago. We lost our youngest case, and it was a male. He got it at 32 and died at 43. So on
Wow.
a lot of exposure. But I want people, because you're not going to be able to help the family that might be stricken with this if you don't get to know it. So that's what my awareness is about, and in the book and the movie, is to grasp
I like
hold.
it. I like it. You've got a big heart and you're reaching out to people to try to make their lives better.
That's all I'm here for now. Yeah.
So what do you do, Pat, for your own self-care now? Like, we talk a lot about, how to stay happy and healthy. Like, back when you were in the throes of caregiving, what helped you? I know therapy was on there, but are there other things for self-care? And then what do you do now? What do you do now to stay healthy and happy?
Well, right now I'm writing I wrote a previous book to Ice Cream in the Cupboard called Fortunate Soldier. And it's a comedy about Vietnam, and it's my tour. My tour was a funny tour, believe it or not. And Kevin Leary once said, I love this. He said that this would make a great movie. He said, but it would probably cost me $1 million, and I don't want to spend it on a bad war that people don't like right now. I think I'd be throwing money away. One's accepted it, like we had in MASH with Korea. We got over that sort of thing. But he said this one was so sensitive, no one wanted to touch it as a film. So I'm doing some writing, and I'm kind of changing some characters toward the end of the book, and I'm kind of creating a short film. And that will with a Twilight Zone kind of twist to it with the characters. So it's going to be pretty exciting.
It sounds great. It's fun to get excited about a new project, and I have a passion for writing, so I get it. And I think, I would counter the producer's comment, or that's why the story needs to be told, right? Is because there is this stigma around that war, and it's affected and touched many people's lives. So who better to tell it than you?
Yeah, and I'm hoping, awesome. Again, twist that corner, and it's almost sort of another awareness type of thing too. Like, okay,
exactly.
We did have a little fun there. I mean, you can put 500,000 GIs in one place and not something funny come out, and not everybody was in a jungle.
Yeah,
strange things happen. So
yeah, I think caregiving is like that. It's like you could. Two things can be true at the same time, right? You can be, you have highs and lows. And I'm sure there was a lot of good moments when you were caregiving for Carmen as well.
Yeah. That's one of the things. I mean, when we kind of say with a couple of the other podcasts I did, try to laugh with your loved one and not at them when they have early onset Alzheimer's, because those laughs go away, and all you get is face, and it's gone. And I always tell caregivers, try to do what you've been doing. Try to keep up as much regularity as you can, especially if you had a hobby that you shared together or something like that. Try to keep that going, because it's no matter what it is, it'll stop. And in my case, Broadway shows in New York. My wife and I were very big on Broadway. And when she was diagnosed with this, I said, okay, I'm going to get theater tickets and get to as many plays as we can, before she's now can't go in those buildings anymore. And I'll never forget this. We went to see Titanic on Broadway, and the stage was tilting and plates were breaking because they were doing the sinking of the boat. And we walked outside, and it was a musical on top of that. We walked outside, very active play. And I don't think we were 10 feet from the marquee. And Carmen said to me, what we don't do anymore, we really have to go and see a Broadway show. And I just frozen in my stop right there. I knew that was the end of the line. And I tried one more show, and she was so disruptive to the audience, I had to leave. I had to take her and leave. And that was the end of the theater. So the caregiver should try to do the things that you love to do together.
Yeah.
And get them done, because with this kind of disease, it goes away.
Yeah, it's not easy to accept, who they are at that moment, right? A lot of them, I think, it's the grieving that we talked about, and you're trying to kind of recreate what it was, and you just can't.
And in the theater, I did another little trick too. I kept a picture of Carmen in my pocket. It was kind of a 5x7 or 4x6 picture of her. And I said, I'm just in case something happens and I have to show somebody, have you seen this woman? I'll keep it in my pocket. And it was always there. Well, that last time we went to the theater at the break of the performance, they went to the ladies' room. I took her down to the ladies' room. So it's just her and I can't go in with her. So she went inside and all these women are coming out and 15 minutes goes by. And I said, oh boy, here we go. So I stopped the woman as she came out and I took the picture out of my pocket and I said, have you seen this woman inside? She has Alzheimer's disease. She said, yeah, she's been staring in front of the mirror, just looking at herself. I said, I'm getting her and tell her husband's here. She's totally forgot I was out there. And the woman went in and brought her out. And that's how we did it. And that's how I was done with anything like that. And of course, I tried to do that in the nursing home scene when she locks herself in the bathroom. You remember that scene?
Yeah.
Blank look, staring at, doesn't know who's in the mirror. Doesn't know.
Doesn't know. What do you, I mean, if people are listening to this and they've got someone at the early onset Alzheimer's, you know, what resources, what do you tell them to, you know, obviously watch your movie and your book and feel validated and affirmed about, you know, the struggle that you're going through, but what would you tell them?
Well, the first thing you have to do, you'll get some recommendations from doctors on who to contact for help too. But the Alzheimer's Association, which is national, the Alzheimer's Foundation, those are good places to start because they can analyze your case and see what kind of care you need. They recommend caregiver organizations that might be better with early onset than not, and so on. So you really have to start with, once you've been diagnosed and everything else, you got to get a hold of an Alzheimer's organization, get registered so they understand your case. And then there are events happen and things like that and walks and that sort of thing. That's where you have to really start.
Yep. You just got to go where the people that have a similar thing are. Well, are you ready for the lightning round of the?
Oh, okay. Yeah, the lightning round.
Yes.
Right.
So this is a self-care journal.
I know it.
No, it's good. There's no wrong answer here. So I wrote this because I wanted to give caregivers something easy, digestible in their day to make self-care more of a priority in their life. And so it's whether they write a sentence or not. So the pages kind of look like this, where there's a prompt.
Oh, I see. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they write. So I just picked out a couple here. Let's see what comes to mind here. How do you stay in the present moment?
How do I stay in the present moment? Well, I'm just so active in the business world, and I'm still talking to people that I retired, of course. My wife still works, present wife still works for the corporation. And so we're always involved in things that are going on there. So staying active in the industry of international trade is what keeps me active. I still loved it for so many years. For 53 years, I did it. And, you know, it's something I just can't walk away from. It's terrible. So I always, whenever I can, staying active.
You've got, I mean, so it's, you know, and I've been there because it's, you know, I've watched my mom talk about her first husband who was deceased with my dad. Right. But now that you're remarried and you're, you know, the book and the movie, it's got to be an interesting perspective for her as well to be a part of her life.
Yeah. And it's funny how we met in the corporation in a hallway. And she had heard from she had read the book. Most of the people in the company had read the book. And she had heard that I might be interested in talking to some people on Broadway about making it a play. And she formerly spent 10 years in the theater industry as an accountant. And she said, you know, I know a few people, but she said, I'm just, the book is mind-boggling. She says, how did you do this? I said, wait a minute. I said, we're in a hallway. You know, I said, why don't I take you to lunch? And I'll tell you how I did this and what the important parts were that. And that's it. Lunch was on again. And
well, we all know what happens when you take a woman to lunch, Pat. That was how it must be a good lunch. But I will say, like, I think why there needs to be caregiving stories out in the theater and make that sounds I love that, but that she's gotten involved with the projects as well. When you envision your future, what do you see?
My future is this disease. I'm not going to leave this in any form, and this will be the part of my life. It becomes a passion, and I'm sticking with it. And so anybody I can help, and I do it individually too. I'll go to people's houses and talk to them and tell them what to watch out for, and you know, what caregiver group to use, and so be an advisor. And I stay on the dementia groups on the Facebook, and I try to answer questions that come through there. So, you know, I stay very active, and that is all I really want to do. You know, and I got my wife.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get it. I had just put in my notice to resign from my day job. I've been working on Happy Healthy Caregiver while working my full-time job and raising kids and caregiving. And so I'm excited to give it the attention and the focus that it deserves. So I get it. I totally get it. All right. Last question is, how do you cope with a difficult day?
Well, cope with a difficult day. I like to, there's a park in, I have a house in Great Neck, Long Island, and there's a beautiful park that's on the water by the United States Merchant Marine Academy. And when I have a day, I leave by myself, park my car, especially in the winter months, there's really nobody there. And I just sit on that bench and think about all the things that I've been blessed with for so many years. And I think about the good things, not the bad stuff. And that seems to lift me out of where I want to be, and I feel better attitude. And until I feel better, I don't leave that bench. And that's how
I like it. It's almost like you play through your greatest hits album, right? Like all of the happy memories, and it's just like playing Pat's greatest hits.
You got dealt a bad deck of cards, and you live with it, and you got through it. And so there's going to be some sad days. They're going to be there. And I know they're, you know, and there were times in the book, working with my transcriber for the book, I did everything on a yellow pad. So she had to transcribe it, and then my editor would get a hold of it, and then we would have a conversation, and I knew what was coming next in the book. And I said, you know, I'm not ready to deal with this yet, so I'm taking a week off. You won't hear from me till 2 Thursdays from now, because I knew there was a sad part coming. So if people saw the movie and cried, read the book and cried, I probably did in the same spots when I wrote it.
I'm tearing up just in our conversation. So, you know, I cried. So it's like, I can't help it. I just wear my emotions on my sleeve. But well, Pat, is there anything else that you wanted to share that you wish that we would have talked about? And how do people connect with you?
Well, you know, you could see me on Facebook, of course, and I love people to see the movie, and it's on Amazon Prime, it's on YouTube, and several other Google Play. So it's quite, and a lot of the demand platforms. It's all there, and that's what I want people to see. This, I want them to learn from it. When they get up out of the audience and they leave, I want them to say, "Wow, I didn't know that." Then I know.
I didn't know that.
I grabbed one, I got one. There was a woman that came in one night, Elizabeth, I have to tell you, and I take caregivers out to dinner. I get 5 or 10 of them, and I take them out to dinner. We make sure their loved ones are being professionally watched. I take them out to dinner so they can talk amongst each other. We talk about what's going on. I bring 2 social workers with me, and we talk about, you know, what does your husband have, FTD or whatever it may be, and let them talk a little bit. Have a glass of wine, have a steak, whatever you like. A woman came in one night and sat down, and I said, gee, we have a lot of new people tonight, which is not good, because we know there's a lot of early onset cases than if we have more caregivers.
Yeah.
And so I said, maybe we should go around the audience and just introduce ourselves. And this woman was the first one, and she said, I came from Suffolk County, 40 miles away, on the other end of the Long Island. And she said, there's nothing like this out there for early onset at all. She said, but the real reason I came here was to tell Pat Moffett for saving my life. And I am 1 foot away from this woman, and the tears just rolled down my face. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I don't know what to say. And I always have an answer for everything. And she said, no, I was planning suicide. My husband is fading away. I know that he doesn't even know me anymore. He has to be put in a home, and my life ends. I don't have anybody else. And I was going to end my life. And I picked ice cream in the cupboard, and I read it. And I got so much out of that. I said, he got through this. He wrote this book. If he can do this, I can do this. And that's why she made that trip in that night. And
that's awesome. I'm glad she did.
So stuck.
I think that's spectacular.
Yeah, it was just, and that makes me feel so good that I helped somebody that made that trip to tell me.
Yes. I think it's great that you have, you don't call it your support group, you call it a dinner, but I have a Daughterhood circle. It's called in Atlanta, Northwest Atlanta Daughterhood circle. And once a month we get together and we have some wine and we have some food, because for some of these women, mostly women, I've had a few men over the years, but mostly it's women. But for some of them, it's the only time they get to come out, really. And to your point, like, they share, and you just know that, people are going to get it. People are going to get it in that atmosphere. So I wish I lived closer to you, Pat. I would definitely come and join in on your, on all of your, it sounds like dinner's a little more safe. We we wouldn't fall in love with each other. Lunches might be a little too much. So which is fun. But if you're ever in Atlanta, I would love to just,
I'll take you out to lunch. We'll go from there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's hilarious.
Lunch is when everything starts. So.
Yes, I know. It's so fun. Well, and I've enjoyed this time with you, Pat. It's I think people are going to get a lot out of it. You've got a lot of gifts to share with your experiences, and just making it a little bit easier for someone else. I think so I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been really terrific, and maybe we'll do something again someday. Be nice.
I love it. I look forward to reading your next book and watching the movie.
Okay, good idea. Okay, I'll talk to you soon.